Okay, thank you so much. It really is an honor. It's an honor to be here today speaking. And yes, I almost didn't make it because of this wicked head cold I have. I brought it from Canada. It's a gift from Canada, this head cold. I brought it. But the photograph that you saw there a couple of minutes ago, that wasn't cheese on that bread. That was butter. I mean, that was butter. That was how much I was eating, 8,000 to 10,000 calories a day on my way to the South Pole. And that photo was taken in Chile before we left as we were loading up our sleds. And I thought to myself, how am I going to eat this for 33 days? You know, really. Now, when I was invited to come and speak here today, and I'm fortunate I get to speak all over the world at some really interesting and dynamic conferences. I've spoken at TED, Long Beach. I've spoken at the Economist World in 2011 and 2010, et cetera, et cetera. But this event I was especially excited to come and speak at. And here's why. I was asked to give a statement before my talk would begin. A statement to see if I could deliver the answer to this statement. And maybe give it some relevance in your own lives. Now, we see this. If you were given an opportunity to learn something significant about yourself, what would you do with it? Well, check this out.
It is the most unforgiving place on Earth. Over 3.5 million square miles. A vast wilderness. It is the Sahara Desert, with people and cultures as unpredictable as the landscape.
Running 50 miles a day, it's the challenge, it's going the distance, it's just pushing myself to my limits.
It's never been done. No one's ever run that far in that period of time.
That will be tough. It's a mental thing, I think.
Imagine running 50 miles per day for more than 100 days. In an unprecedented personal challenge, 3 ultra runners, good friends, test physical strength and mental toughness, running across the entire Sahara Desert.
They're such high-end athletes. They're used to pushing themselves, but they're going to be pushing their bodies more than they ever have in the past.
We've had injury, we've had sickness.
Sorry, dude.
The best thing to do would be to stop the day, but we have to cover some miles today.
Any Americans found there without proper paperwork are going to be considered spies, liable to execution.
You're going to have to make the best decision for us as a team.
It's so difficult for me because the personalities are so different.
I don't want to push us into the ground, obviously, but I'll push us damn close.
This is, a lot tougher than you could have ever thought.
You can do this. You don't want to quit.
It's okay. We saw a young boy, 7 or 8 years old, in the desert alone, fending for himself while his dad was a 2 days walk away to get water. That's the water situation. I mean, it's so much bigger an issue than I would have ever thought.
Distance is 7,500 kilometers from the west coast of Africa to the east coast. It's like running across my entire country of Canada, with the exception being that it could be 50 degrees Celsius and we'd be in sand the entire time, right? Some basic statistics of this expedition to wrap our heads around it took 111 days, averaging 70 kilometers a day without a single day of rest. 5 immediate support crew the entire time we were out there. One of the most difficult parts of the expedition was the fact that I had 2 showers the entire time I was out there. So I can tell you that we were pretty funky by the end of the expedition. But in a sandstorm, you were not going to get lost because your crew could smell you, even if they couldn't see you, But I tell this story and I talk about these statistics. I mean, it's 7,500 kilometers. That's ridiculous distance to run. 70K every day. Think about that. But consider this, if you will. When I stood on the west coast of Africa on November 1st, 2006, and I thought about those 6 countries that I was going to run across, I had been running for the sum total of 2.5 years. 2.5 years, that was my running career. Not a lifelong athlete at all. As a matter of fact, my greatest adventure leading up to this, as a pack-a-day smoker, was getting off the couch to replace this warm pint of beer that I had in my hand with a much colder one from the refrigerator. I mean, truth be told, I was that person. I was that sedentary individual who never thought of himself as an athlete. Now, things would change for me dramatically, and I would discover this endurance athlete, this person inside who I never knew for the first 30 years of my life. I was 30, going on 30, in 1998, and I had to make a decision with my life, because unlike this esteemed audience, I had not graduated even community college, barely got out of high school. To me, my options in life seemed bleak, to put it bluntly. I had no idea what I was going to do with the rest of my life. No idea. Now, thankfully, I have a brother, John, who exuded confidence. Younger brother, great athlete, himself once sedentary, turned his life around much younger than I even thought of it, and became this great person through athletics. It changed him. It changed him completely. I thought to myself, if I could feel this much the way my brother feels, I know my life would be different. Well, I made a decision that I was going to kick all of these nasty habits, the cigarettes especially, and I was going to turn my life around. I was going to make a difference in my life, and I was going to see where it would lead. I had nothing to lose, no option but to try. Well, that was in 1998. It took me until New Year's Eve 1999 to actually quit smoking. I figured, with the whole Y2K, maybe I wouldn't have to follow through. Remember that, Y2K? But I did. In that first week of 2000, my life would change forever. My brother would take me into the outdoors to go ice climbing. I was going to be like my brother, so that meant having to do everything that he did. And he led me to this wall of ice where he convinced me to climb with picks on my hands and boots. And I got halfway up this waterfall of frozen ice that he insisted that I would enjoy. Of course, I was thinking this is when my brother gets me back for everything I ever did to him when we were growing up, right? But I get halfway up and my legs are shaking, not because it's 40 below and it's a Canadian winter and I'm on a frozen waterfall, but because adrenaline is surging through my body. And I never felt this before. I summited my waterfall, and I looked down at my brother, and he looked up at me and very proudly said, "You did it." And as far as I was concerned, that day I didn't summit a waterfall that was 30 meters high. I summited Mount Everest. Because that's how I felt. A few years before I made a decision to change my life, a few days before I followed through, and here I was. The joke is, with my friends and family, I never went back inside. And I would spend the next several years honing these skills as an endurance athlete, even reading an article about ultramarathons, people running distances greater than a marathon, and deciding that that was going to be my future, running great distances. Even at the time when I read the article, I was still a non-runner. I mean, in my mind, why would you run somewhere when you can get in your car and drive there quicker, right? Or ride your bike, right? Get there much quicker. But I took on the challenge of running. Ended up winning a few ultramarathons. To my absolute surprise, I had become a runner. This was what I was going to do with the rest of my life. Now, running has been a great teacher, and it's led me all over the world and taught me things about my world that I otherwise would have never learned. In 2004, I ran an event in Niger, Africa. It's called the Trans 333. In this race, you're given a GPS. And the GPS is programmed with water checkpoints every 23 to 25-ish kilometers. The race, as the name would indicate, is 333 kilometers non-stop. And so I'm running in this race, and I'm following my GPS, water checkpoint after water checkpoint, and then something happened. There's a sandstorm. And my GPS was no longer functioning because there's so much sediment and sand in the atmosphere I couldn't tell where I was going. Right? Well, it seemed like hours. It probably wasn't that long. But the sand started to dissipate. And I could see, like in a snowstorm, if anybody's ever, because being Canadian, everything goes back to snowstorms. I could see, in front of me, where I needed to go. My GPS was functioning again, and lo and behold, there was a mountain in my way to my next water checkpoint. But between me and the mountain was this family of nomads. One family, 50-ish camels. And as I'm running towards them, I'm thinking to myself, how amazing is this going to be? I'm brushing up on my French, because the Tuareg, the nomads in this region of Africa, speak Tamashek or French. I can't speak Tamashek, but I can speak French being Canadian. So I'm brushing up on it. I get to the front of the camels, and the dad stops all the camels. Their backs loaded with salt. They had mined the salt. They're walking about 1,000 K to disperse the salt, then they're going to go back into their nomads, right? So all the camels, everybody, the whole train stops. And he's taking his time to explain to me there is a way around that mountain. It's not as daunting as going up over the top of it. In fact, there is a track around it. And he's looking at my footprints in the sand while we're having this conversation. He says, how long have you been walking in that deep sand? And I said to him, feels like days, probably been hours. He said, well, you see the way the wind is blowing the sand over there, just over there, 50 meters over there. I said, yeah, go stand on that sand. And I went and stood on that sand. It was hard as standing on the stage here right now. It was incredible, the knowledge of the sand and the desert that this man had, obviously. He's lived his entire life there. But that one piece of information would follow me for all of my Saharan journeys after that. Well, I digress. While I'm standing there speaking with him, from between the camels comes running his daughter, maybe 7 or 8 years old. And she runs over to me and she wanted something from my backpack. I handed her this orange emergency whistle. Have you ever seen these at the store, the outdoor store, and they're on your backpack, and it's a buckle, but you can also blow it, and people will come and rescue you? Well, nobody rescued me during the sandstorm, because I'm doing tweets, and I'm like, with the sand, and there's no helicopters rescuing the Canadian guy stranded in the desert, right? So she wanted something from my backpack, so I handed her the whistle. Here you go. She took the whistle, she threw it on the ground, and as quick as could be, she reached behind my backpack, and she pulled from my pack this 1.5-liter plastic water bottle. You know what I'm talking about. It's a standard water bottle. There's only about this much water left in it. It wasn't going to help me in getting around that mountain, so she could have the bottle because I could get another one at my next checkpoint. She ran away crinkling that plastic bottle in her hands, and she was happy. She was so happy, I thought, to have that bottle. It's like she did like even a little dance, you know? Now, I got to tell you, when we were planning our journey to run across the Sahara Desert, and Matt Damon discussed the potential of making a documentary film, not only about 3 knuckleheads that are going to try and run across the Sahara, but a story of the water crisis in northern Africa, I learned then that it wasn't the bottle that she was so happy to have. That little girl that I'd met a few years before was happy dancing to have clean drinking water. Clean drinking water. I'm a father of 2 girls. I cannot conceive of a place where my daughters would have to drink sludge every day. And that clean drinking water for someone this big is a luxury. It just didn't seem right or fair. And I wanted to know more. I wanted to learn more, and I would learn more. I would learn more in the run across the Sahara Desert. Now, this journey, as I said, was 111 days long. And this gentleman you see standing between Charlie and Kevin and I would lead our expedition. This is Mohamed Iksa. Among the Tuareg people, he's a hero. He's built schools in the Tiden Valley of Niger, wells. He's got over 500 water projects in the plans right now in Niger alone. His knowledge of the desert, absolutely incredible. And he would share his experiences and what he knew of the communities that we would visit to resupply along our entire journey. I said 6 countries. This is Mali. We were running through Mali, and by this point we had, gotten into our groove. 70K a day was actually doable, even in that heat. And I'm asked, actually, incidentally, and as a segue, what was the most difficult part of this expedition? Well, obviously, running 70 kilometers a day is really, really tough, right? My weight today is about 150 pounds. I'm not exactly sure what that is in kilos, but about 150 pounds. When I started this expedition, I weighed 162, knowing that I would lose weight. By the end of the expedition, I weighed 119 pounds. So physically, unbelievably grueling. Sickness, injury, we had it all. Dysentery, I had twice. But by far the most difficult part of the expedition was not the physical parts at all. It was the emotional part of the expedition. This is my wife, Kathy, and she's my best friend in the entire world. I mean, every corny thing you can say about your wife, I would say. I mean, this person she's incredibly intelligent. She's the environmental advisor for Export Development Canada. She's an environmental engineer. She understands some of the things that I was witnessing as I ran across northern Africa. She understands it completely. And not having her there to speak with and to share, the difficulties of this expedition and the difficulties of the things that were unfolding in front of us, the life that we were learning about for the people in these communities, that was really tough. I swore to myself that when I was done this expedition, I would go home and I would be the greatest husband on earth. I so took her for granted, right? And if you ask Kathy, she'll tell you that for a week after I got home, I was the best husband on earth. But, the emotional part, we would come into these communities for resupply in Mali and Niger, and guaranteed almost every single time, as if they knew we were coming, which of course nobody knew, there would be these smiling faces outside these communities. And temporarily, thoughts of family and sadness would be replaced. It was almost like the pothole of sadness was covered by the joyous laughter of these children running with us through these communities. Now, in the film, there's one scene where we're running with, there's got to be 150 kids. It was absolutely fascinating. It was amazing. I'll tell you something else that was incredible, is the absolute generosity displayed by these people in these communities.